Departure Yukon 7, 22,600, Yukon 772, increase departure, radar contact, final maintain flight over 200. Moving flight vectors across your waiting for traffic. Maintain 200, Yukon 722, flight over 200, 200.
Hello again everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are back in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 and we are of course going to be taking a look at the Carenado Cessna CT210N. The aircraft released for 2024 and MSFS 2020 around a month ago, and personally, I know as well somewhat controversially, I generally enjoy Carenado's output within the sim, so I was pretty keen to give the CT210 a go. Firstly, Carenado is offering the turbo version of the aircraft, which means it does provide rather a lot of utility within the sim. Secondly, this is the first of their add-ons to feature their real experience technology within Microsoft Flight Simulator. And thirdly, the CT210 fits in very nicely with our flight here today. The CT210 may well look like any other Cessna that we have available to us in the sim, but this particular version again offers a 310 horsepower turbocharged engine. The aircraft also has a retractable landing gear, a cruise speed of 204 knots, a service ceiling of 27,000 feet. So the CT210N, certainly not your average Cessna. By that same token, as mentioned, this is also not your average Carenado release. The CT210 ships with what Carenado call their real experience technology. To some degree that is a little bit of a marketing gimmick, but the aircraft does come with extra depth in terms of systems modelling. As well, there are a couple of additional visual features and effects on the aircraft. We will of course take a look at some of those during the flight, and in terms of our flight today, we are currently on the ground at what is rapidly becoming one of my favourite virtual spots within the sim. Our CT210 is currently on blocks here in Dutch Harbour on Alaska, and we're going to be making a short but incredibly scenic hop up towards the northeast, bound for Akatan. The flight itself should only take around 20 minutes. We're going to be ferrying supplies here from Dutch Harbour up towards the Trident Seafood processing plant on the island of Akatan. Again, beautiful scenery along the way, and of course we'll be talking about the aircraft as we go. As always, I really hope you enjoy the flight. If you do, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell if you do want to be notified of future content. And as well, if you would like to help support my content further, you can do so by becoming a channel member or patron. So here we are then today in the cockpit of Carenado's Cessna CT210, and as mentioned, currently on the ground at the absolutely beautiful Dutch Harbour on the island of Alaska. Carenado market their CT210 with their real experience technology. What that means for the user, there are essentially a few features here with the aircraft which do elevate it above the typical Carenado experience. Worth noting is certainly not going to be getting an A2A level of fidelity here with the aircraft, but there are a couple of nice features, and of course we'll try and touch on some of those here as we go. As mentioned, we're going to be making a short run out towards the east, heading for the island of Akatan. We've already carried out the pre-flight checks, so for the before start checklist, the pre-flight inspection has been completed, seatbelts and seats are adjusted and locked. Brakes have been tested and are set, the cowl flaps set through to fully open. Avionics master switch is selected off, the autopilot is selected off, landing gear lever is selected down, the master switch can go on, and the nav lights can go on there as well. Landing gear light, we do have a gear down indication, the lights are checked. Circuit breakers actually modelled on the aircraft, which is obviously quite unusual for Carenado, and really nice to see. As you can see there, you can pull the circuit breakers, there are associated system effects as well. I'll try and demonstrate that later on. Those circuit breakers are checked in, the fuel selector valve set through to both, we've got about 20 US gallons there in each main tank. Flaps are selected up, indicating up. For the start checks, the mixture is set through to fully rich, prop set through to high RPM, throttle is closed. The auxiliary boost pump will set through to start. According to the checklist I'm using, which is a real-world checklist, as we advance the throttle here, we should see an increase in fuel flow. As you can see, they're not registering anything on the gauge. and even if we turn the fuel computer on here as well, not registering any sort of a fuel flow. So once again, a Carenado aircraft, not everything working necessarily as it should, but we'll assume we've primed the engine. So back to idle now on the throttle. Boost pump selected off. We'll take the beacon light on. Just checking the prop area, making sure everything's clear. We'll crack the window. Clear prop. Close that up again. Just cracking the throttle here for the start, and we'll engage the starter. As you can see, there are nice vibration effects on the panel as we start up. Really nice animation there as well on the artificial horizon as the gyro spools up. There's 1,000 on the RPM. Oil pressure looking good. We'll take the avionics master switch on. And just waiting here for our GNS 530 and 430 to initialize. In the meantime, we'll set the transponder through to standby. Set the altimeter. The QNH today is 2972. That's giving us the correct aerodrome elevation there of 20 feet. We'll set 3000 here. Pre-selected on the autopilot. We'll squawk 1200. In terms of the setup here for the HSI, showing a heading there of about 300 degrees on the magnetic compass, so we'll just reset the HSI. Planning departure off runway 31. Just initialize here the GNS 530 and 430. So we'll set the heading bug through to 310. Using hardware there for the input, it seems to only jump in 10-degree increments, not quite sure why. There's 310 on the heading bug. And we're going to be tracking out to Akatan on a course of 058. So we've got that set there on the CDI. With the DME there, we'll select nav 1. And we can tune up the Dutch Harbour VOR, that's on a frequency of 113.9. Interestingly, we only seem to pick up the DME, there doesn't seem to be any associated VOR. I'm not sure whether or not that's an aircraft issue, a sim issue, or indeed a sky vector issue. Looking at sky vector, it appears as though the airfield has both the VOR and DME. In the aircraft, it seems we're only getting the DME. Interestingly, in the sim, it seems to only demonstrate that we have a VOR itself. Nevertheless, we are now ready for the taxi, so we'll take the taxi lights on. You can see there the wind more or less straight down runway 31. So we'll take the park brake off. It is a very short taxi for us. We're just going to get ourselves down to the holding point, and then we'll carry out the run-up checks. And once more, as you can see, very short taxi. We'll just line ourselves up here towards the edge of the apron. That should keep us pretty clear of any other traffic or ground objects in terms of our prop wash. So getting the aircraft lined up into wind, as much air as we can get going through the engine here for the cooling during the run-up. Park brake is set. In terms of the run-up itself, just leave the engine ticking over a little bit longer here, around 1000 RPM. So for the checks, the park brake is set, cabin doors and windows are closed, the cowl flaps once again set through to fully open. P's and P's looking good for the flight controls. We've got full left and full right there on the ailerons. There's our checked and full up. Full down there on the elevator, full left and full right there on the rudder. Flight instruments are checked again, the fuel tank selector set through to both. Mixture set through to fully rich. T's and P's looking good, we'll come through to 1700 RPM. Another feature apparently of real experience is we should see the needles vibrate and jump around here at high engine power settings. I believe that effect is included, but it does seem to be very subtle. There's 1700 RPM, we'll cycle the prop. And just once more. So checking the operation of the prop there, getting some nice warm oil as well going through the mechanism. So prop is checked, we'll check the magnetos. Coming on to the left. Very small drop there on the left mag, as you can see, probably only around 25 RPM or so. Come back through to both. And onto the right. Same drop there on the right. And again, back to both. The RPM looks good, suction looks good, T's and P's again do look good. That oil temperature is still coming up there at the moment. Everything else nicely now sitting within the green. Come back towards idle RPM. We should see the engine here idle around 700 to 800 RPM. Got about 700. Going back through to 1,000. For the rest of the checks, the radios are set. We'll be taking off momentarily, so transponder can go through to out. In terms of the lights, we'll take the strobe lights on, taxi light can go off, we'll take the landing light on, and the pitot heat on here as well. In terms of the takeoff checks, transponder is set for the flaps, again according to my checklist. 10 degrees preferable here for the takeoff. We've got 10 degrees selected, indicated. And once more just visually confirming that. And the flaps look good. So part brake off. Swinging the aircraft back round to the right. And again, very short taxi for us. All clear on final. We'll get ourselves lined up here on runway 31. Okay, so we're now lined up here on runway 31, and as you can see there, looking at the windsock, we've got a nice stiff headwind down runway 31. We'll be departing straight out. Initially, we'll make a left turn around over the bay and join overhead out towards the east. That should give us a pretty decent view of Dutch Harbour here as we make the departure. So off the brakes, feeding in the throttle. Just a few drops of rain there on the windshield. Sounds overall on the aircraft are pretty nice. The aircraft does sound powerful. Perhaps just a little bit flat in terms of the bass. I'm fine with the sound set. So it's full throttle, power looks good, T's and P's are in the green. Just coming up through 70 knots, easing back on the yoke. And we're airborne. Just hold the gear till we're clear of the runway, which we now are, so we'll tap the brakes, bring out the gear. Pitch for 100 knots initially here during the climb, holding the flaps till we're up through 300 feet, and there's 300, the flaps can come up. Once we're through 500 feet, we'll start a left turn, and there's 500. So commencing a left turn, we'll come back as well on the power now, 25 inches on the manifold pressure here for the climb. We've got Mount Akutan just out there at our 11 o'clock position, out to the west. That is an active stratovolcano, I believe, up at around 6,000 feet, and one of the most active volcanoes within the region. There's 25 inches on the manifold pressure, we'll come back to 2,500 RPM. Good now in terms of our climb power setting, and just continuing our left turn here around the bay. Up through 1,500 feet, so another 1,500 foot here in the climb. We'll slew the heading bug around as well, so we're looking to depart out towards 058 on that course. Initially we'll come onto a heading of 130 just to make that downwind a abeam Dutch Harbour itself. Absolutely stunning views in this part of the world. Highly recommend coming and visiting the Aleutian Islands. Makes for some really interesting flying in the sim. So we've got Dutch Harbour, we've got the airfield just off the left wing. In reality, I believe this is one of North America's biggest fishing harbours in terms of output. I believe it's crab fishing that predominantly takes place in this part of the world. And as well, I believe the region featured in the Deadliest Catch TV show, although I'm not all that familiar with the show myself. There's 2,500 feet. Stunning visual, stunning lighting here. And just about to come onto our heading. About to hit 3,000 feet here as well. One nice quick look at the scenery. So Dutch Harbour apparently not only quite famous or relevant in modern times, it was also a major strategic site during World War II, and the Japanese actually bombed Dutch Harbour in 1942. So good on our heading, just about to approach 3,000 feet. We'll level the aircraft off. Overall, the flight model does feel still pretty typically Carenado, quite lightweight, nice enough to fly. No particularly unusual handling characteristics. Just getting ourselves trimmed here at the moment. Once the speed comes up to 140 knots, we'll reduce our power setting again. There's 140. Continuing to trim, we'll come back to 22 inches on the manifold pressure. And 2,300 RPM. Power is set. Once more, just continuing to trim. As you can see, not picking up any radial there off the VOR. It is just that DME. Nevertheless, great visual conditions here today. It's going to be pretty easy for us to navigate visually. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. Temperatures and pressures are good. That cylinder head temperature is still nice and low, so we'll close up the cowl flaps. Get rid of a little bit of drag. And burning about 14 gallons per hour now. Going to the fuel computer. Up at 3,000 feet, so we could well lean the engine out. I think we'll keep things fully rich here today. We're not paying anything for the fuel. So at the moment, just passing off the eastern coastline now of Unalaska Island. And straight off the nose here we've got Collector Bay. Off the left of the aircraft there we've got Unalaska Bay. And as I said, nice visual conditions. Once we round these hills we'll come over the Unalaga Pass. We've got the island of Unalaga there off dial 1 o'clock. And then crossing the Akatan Pass out towards, unsurprisingly, Akatan Island. Straight off the nose is Akatan Island, and as well the Akatan volcano. That's up at around 4,200 feet. Aircraft taking a little bit of time to get steady here in pitch. Interestingly, Akatan Airfield actually not located on Akatan Island. It is just off to the east. There is looks to be a small strip on the island itself at the food processing plant, but we're heading for the main airfield, and apparently Akatan Island actually accessible from the main airfield via a hovercraft, so quite an interesting set of transport considerations here in this part of the world. So that's Unalaga Island, just out at our 1 o'clock as mentioned. That's the only land between us here and Akatan. Anyway, once again then, in terms of the aircraft itself, it's really nice to see Carenado step things up a little bit. The aircraft still does have a lot of Carenado DNA overall. You pretty much do know what you're getting in terms of a product, and there are quite a few bugs still noticeable. For example, for some reason the GNS units seem to operate slightly differently from the default in the sim. For example, using the range here, you can't actually click on the buttons as you would with most aircraft. Instead, you've got to roll the mouse wheel if you want to come out on the range. And the same seems to be true here as well. Can't actually push the selector here to go into VOR selection on the frequency. So you'd be a little bit hamstrung in that respect. Similarly, we mentioned, for example, issues with the fuel flow.
Cruiser 4, contact Anchorage Center, 1190.7. Get up.
FD7 Alaska 104, see ya.
Departure Alaska 64, climbing through 1,500, climbing 4,000.
Alaska 64, Anchorage departure, radar contact, maintain 4,000 for traffic.
Maintain 4,000, Alaska 64.
ACR 21, turning 080.
080, ACR 21.
Sound VFR Cessna 4,500.
So real experience overall offers a nice increase in fidelity of Carenado products, but again, you're certainly not getting any sort of A2A or black square level of fidelity, which is a little bit of a shame. Carenado obviously nailed down the visuals of an aircraft every time, and I doubt anyone would disagree with that statement. The Cessna CT210 here is certainly no exception, pretty much spot on in terms of the visuals. Sounds are fine as well with Carenado, always pretty decent, nothing to complain about really. I've had a few people say that the sounds here aren't true to life of the 210. Personally, I can't really comment on that, but the aircraft sounds decent enough and again feels powerful enough. I think the sound set does it justice. The flight model, as I said, feels fairly default in nature, nothing too unsurprising there. Didn't feel overly sensitive on the rudder during the takeoff, which is good, and felt pretty appropriate there in rotation. Overall, though, again, generally in terms of hand flying, it feels pretty stock standard. But personally, I don't mind that about Carenado aircraft. I don't need every aircraft I fly to be of the utmost fidelity. These products are obviously reasonably priced, and I enjoy them for what they are. I know that a lot of people disagree with me on that one. And again, the system's depth, broadly similar to what you'd expect from Carenado. There are, again, just a few slight improvements. Again, those circuit breakers, for example. We'll try and demonstrate that in just a moment once we come over Akatan Island. I'm always a bit baffled as to why developers don't team up a little bit more together in terms of cooperating on an add-on. Obviously, Carenado, the very top of their field in terms of visual modelling and texturing. Similarly, A2A absolutely at the head of their game in terms of systems fidelity and really making an aircraft feel alive. And each of those tend to complement each other. A2A, if they have any weakness, it tends to be their texturing. Carenado, if they have any weakness, it's certainly their systems modelling and often their flight modelling. So that sort of a partnership seems like the perfect matchup to me, but for whatever reason, devs don't tend to do that sort of thing. I presume a lot of it comes down to finance and obviously not wanting to share the spoils of war in any given product. But certainly with those sorts of matchups, I think we could actually have some pretty legendary products in the sim. Although again, A2A absolutely capable of making their own excellent products, and certainly at some point planning on taking a look at the Aerostar. I really enjoy anything that A2A puts out. I have yet to look at the Aerostar. I know it is out in early access, but personally early access in A2A to me just doesn't quite feel right, so I'm probably going to wait until the aircraft has been released and then I'll review it accordingly. One matchup which is of interest to me and seems to be going ahead is Aerosoft and Tolis with their A340 in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Aerosoft obviously had a pretty shocking run with their A330 right at the end of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. That aircraft was well below what we'd expect from Aerosoft or really any developer, quite a lot of bugs. Tolis, on the other hand, obviously have a pretty stellar reputation in terms of producing Airbus aircraft, albeit for X-Plane. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they come up with there. Hopefully Tolis will drag things along and we'll have a nice high-quality A340 available for the sim. In terms of the sim, Microsoft Flight Simulator, I mentioned it I think in one of my recent videos, but things really do seem to be improving now, and I am starting to actually enjoy the sim, enjoy using this particular sim once again. I haven't at any point fallen out of love with simming. I've still been very much enjoying X-Plane, and the two sims offering really rather different experiences. Let's come in again on the range. But Microsoft Flight Simulator does feel to me as though things are starting to get in hand now. There are still a number of issues I would like to see fixed up and improved. But for example, this flight here today, the scenery absolutely stunning. And you just wouldn't get this level of visual fidelity in terms of scenery with an X-Plane. Even using something like Ortho 4XP, you're only going to have bit of a compromise. So once again, this is Mount Akatan, 4,200 foot there on the peak. You can see still well within the snow line. And coming over some high terrain now, so you can see we are just picking up there on the rad out. If we pull the rad out circuit breaker here, for example, wrong one, you can see we do lose the radio altimeter. So once more, circuit breakers do work, and they do have some degree of systems interaction, which is really nice to see. We'll just adjust our heading slightly further east. And coming over the hills now with that wind, getting a little bit of sink as we come down over the downwind side of the hill. So again here, looking at the GNS 530, we've got a small strip just out at the Trident Seafood food processing plant. Again, a significant processing plant in this part of the world. I believe it accounts for much of the local area's economy. We should get a good view of that as we come into the Akan Strait. And again, quite a lot of sink there now, so having to put a bit more pressure in on the yoke. And obviously as we climb here, we're going to bleed off a little bit of airspeed, but we'll just hold the power for now. I'm happy with where we are. We've got plenty of energy in hand. Those cylinder head temperatures now looking pretty cool. We've got the cowl flaps fully closed, so not much more we can do there. We could run the engine at a higher power setting, but certainly no need to be doing that. So here's the bay just off the nose. Again, the food processing plant just out of our 12 o'clock. Apparently there's a whaling station down there as well. I don't know whether or not there's going to be anything to see there in the sim. Just off our 11 o'clock is Hot Springs Bay. And the island you can see further out towards the northeast is of course Akan Island, which is where we're looking for our airstrip. Runway direction there is 0927. Given the winds, we're probably going to land on 27, so we'll be coming overhead. We'll just enter straight in for a left-hand downwind onto 27. I believe that does have a little bit of a downslope to it, but again, given the pretty strong winds here today, that's probably going to be preferable. So leaving the most significant high terrain behind us, and again, stunning views. Really nice to see as well now that we are starting to get sharper terrain textures here in Microsoft Flight Simulator, even at higher altitudes. I think that was one of the issues that got fixed up more or less with Sim Update 3. X-Plane is still a better bet when it comes to high altitude flying in terms of sharp textures, but of course you've got to manually install any scenery there, whether it's Ortho 4XP or Auto Ortho, things of that nature. So here's the Trident Seafood Corporation food processing plant. I don't know whether or not that is also the whaling station. Looking at the chart here, it looks as though the whaling station just down on our left. I don't know whether or not that little inlet just off our 9 o'clock has anything to do with that. So again, we're going to be dropping our supplies off at Akutan airfield, and then presumably, by the sounds of it, they'll be ferried back in by hovercraft to the processing plant itself. A little bit of residential just out to the east there as well. Approaching the field now, so we'll start reducing power. We'll go for a descent rate here of around minus 500 feet per minute. We should be visual with the field shortly here as well. Once again, temperatures and pressures are good. Surprised we're seeing the cylinder head temperatures there quite so low. I would have thought the needle would be a little bit further up the gauge. Again, I think that's probably just Carenado not fully modelling everything. 30 miles out now from Dutch Harbour, and just continuing to reduce that power.
Anchorage clearance 225 will be stopped on VFR to Kenai Delta.
225 230, I'm heading on board 2,500, bridge frequency 126.4, start company.
On departure flight 200, VFR low 2,500, 126.4 to my company for your 25. Departure off Lake Hood, headed to Palmer, request VFR, or altitude restriction.
Okay, so just coming down through 2,000 feet, making a gentle right-hand turn here back out towards the east. just set the CDI bar again here for runway heading, so 270, and same here as well for the heading bug. Holding the speed for now, we'll hold the gear as well for the time being. We'll just get the downwind checks out of the way. The brakes are checked and off, undercarriage will hold, mixture is rich. Fuel pump not required, fuel quantities are checked. Light instruments are checked. Copy, not required, not installed, and hatches and harnesses are secure. Tap a strong downwind, we can take the gear below 165 knots, we'll take the gear down now. Obviously that speed rolling off here with the increase in drag. We'll just keep our current power setting though for the time being. Let the speed reduce. And we'll level off here at around 1500 feet. Nicely positioned here for the downwinds. Take a stage of flap here as well, we'll go flaps 10. And looking to hold around 100 knots here for now. The speed's good, just trimming. A little bit of up elevator trim. Just monitoring our downwind position. We'll just hold heading for a couple more seconds and we can start the turn now back onto base. We'll come through to flaps 20. And let that speed start reducing now back towards 80 knots. We're looking for 70 knots over the threshold. And again, just anticipating a little bit of a crosswind here out from the right. Visibility in the 210 is nothing to write home about, it's adequate, but overall the door frame taking up a lot of the side view. They're holding 90 knots for now. Trying to get visual here with the runway. There's the thresholds. 4 whites on the PAPI, not too concerned about that. We're actually going to be aiming closer to the threshold of the runway. It's going to be very easy here to bleed off the rest of our energy. Anyway, looking good, we'll come through to full flap. Again, increase in drag, reduction in speed. Speed rolling off towards 80. Pitch, we'll set through to fully fine. Needing quite a bit more power now, obviously with that increase in drag. So pitch is full fine, undercarriage is down, flaps are set. Landing clearance not required, the runway is clear. And again, stunning view there of Akatan Island as we come down final approach. You can see having to offset here on the heading with that crosswind. Wind out from the right, so we're going to need a little bit of left rudder here to correct on the centre line. And still just carrying here a few extra knots. Coming onto the PAPI. Okay, speed's looking good. Not a great view here over the nose once you're back at approach speed in the 210. Okay, chopping the power. Back on the yoke. There's touchdown. The rudder overall on the aircraft not particularly effective at low speeds, needing almost full rudder there to correct. We've got around 20 knots of wind, so max there around 10 knots crosswind. Anyway, plenty of runway even with that downslope, so we'll just roll through initially and we can vacate off to the right. Okay, so we just vacated the runway for the after landing checks. The flaps can come up. Cow flaps. Set 3-2 fully open. Transponder can go off. We'll take the strobe light off. Same as well for the landing lights. Not going to bother here with the taxi light. We're just about to enter the apron anyway. And we'll hold the rest of the items for the time being. So this is Akutan Airport. As you can see, pretty small little installation out here overall. Again, just servicing the main islands. Nice little custom scenery here though. Pretty small apron. We'll just swing ourselves around. And we'll go and park out facing the Cessna. And that's the Cessna. Enjoy the views here of the sunset as we shut down. So park brake is set as usual. Leave the engine ticking over here at 1000 RPM. For the security checks then, the park brake is set. Avionics master switch is off. We'll pull the mixture. As you can see, sounds and animation there on the engine shutdown can certainly use some work. Nice vibrations there as the prop dies. So good shutdown. Ignition switch is selected off. We'll take the beacon off here as well. Master switch is off. And we are safely back on the ground here at Akatan. So there you go guys, I do hope you enjoyed our outing in the Carenado Cessna CT210N. Once again, whilst generally speaking the aircraft does have all the DNA of a typical Carenado release, it is really nice to see that Carenado are pushing their own boundaries a little bit, and hopefully we'll continue to see improvements and advancements in their products. With regards to the 210 specifically, the texturing and modelling as ever pretty flawless from Carenado, nothing really much to say there. The flight model, as I mentioned, no egregious behaviours there. It does though have a lot of Carenado DNA. That is to say that the aircraft feels broadly on a par with most default flight models, nothing too surprising there. Systems depth, whilst there has been a few improvements, I would say is still subpar versus most of the competition. I was hoping that real experience might bring us a little bit more in terms of, for example, engine modelling and systems accuracy. That doesn't really seem to be the case. With the exception of the working circuit breakers, again, most of the aircraft systems seem fairly default. Aircraft sounds, again, I think generally decent. I have seen some people mention they aren't true to life of the real-world 210. I can't comment on that. As I say though, the aircraft does sound suitably powerful for the most part, particularly internally, which is nice. I do think a little bit of bass is lacking internally, and there is a little bit of flanging from the external sounds, which is always a bit upsetting to hear. Generally speaking though, I would say the sounds are decent enough for this sort of price range. Product extras are pretty standard for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. As you've seen, we get the chocks included, various covers and fixtures. We also have the ability to integrate various GNS units, and the aircraft will also build up a little bit of dirt throughout the flight as well. You'll have seen the bug build up there on the windscreen. Real Vision itself does also bring a couple of nice animations and features, so I would say that the aircraft is a little bit above average in terms of additional features, which again I think is really nice to see, and hopefully Carenado continue in this trend. Overall, whilst I know that Carenado do receive a lot of negative press, much of which was deserved previously, I personally think it is fair to say at this point that Carenado do produce aircraft that are broadly on a par with their competition. Their add-ons obviously aren't study level, but then again neither are they intending to be. There does always seem to be one or two scrappy bugs, which of course is disappointing, and bug fixing, aftermarket care, not one of Carenado's strong points. But ultimately I did enjoy my time out in the 210, and for me at least that is all that really matters. Once more, I do hope that you enjoyed the flight as well. If you did, please consider giving the video a like. If you want to see more content from the channel, then please do consider subscribing as well. And I would also highly recommend that you do hit the notification bell if you would like to be notified of future videos. Lastly, once more, if you would like to help support my content further, you can do so by becoming a channel member or patron, and I'll leave a link to both of those down in the video description below. As ever, a very big thank you to my channel members and patrons for all of your support and making this content possible. And to all of you, I do hope you're having a great day wherever you are. Take really good care, and I will see you all again soon.